I can be quite sure that most of you had the chance to swim in a body of water and look into the pitch dark depths wondering what can be lurking beneath you and if you are safe. But what happens if everything goes wrong and you will be forced to go into those depths in order to survive? On this episode of Games Compared, we will take a plunge into the deep waters and see how it goes. So if you suffer from thalassophobia, hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, you better hold on to your oxygen tanks, because in this Games Compared we will be taking a look at two survival games, both with majority of time spent underwater, FarSky and Subnautica. As we have covered RTS games, looter shooters, and FPS games already, I wanted to switch it up and go with something with the survival aspect, as these games are fairly popular. Therefore, we will not be only comparing the survival skills and needs to stay alive, but also the dangerous oceans of the planet Earth, but also the oceans of the planet 4546b. Therefore, let's start with the part of the game that will hopefully keep you glued to the seat, the story. In case you never heard of FarSky, it can be almost considered as if a low-budget version of Subnautica, as you play a character called Nathan, who ran into some trouble in the ocean inside of his submarine, which broke down and fell apart into 9 different pieces. However, your radio is working and you are contacted by your colleague Madison, who informs you that there is a conveniently placed underwater base nearby, and you should get there, and from that base you will start to work towards being safe. And well, that is it. I know what you are thinking, right? Still better love story than Twilight. But unfortunately, it is the weakest aspect of the game. While I was playing the game, I was thinking about the story, and it felt like the person responsible for writing it had to go pee. So in the heat of the moment, the person responsible just wrote down something really basic, and then when he or she returned, they never really finished the idea. Now, because I know some of you might have never ever played or heard about any of these games, Subnautica did become famous thanks to being in development for really long time and other things, but in case you do not want to have it spoiled, I will tell you the basic concept of the story, which is that you are a survivor of a spaceship on a foreign planet where you will need to fulfill certain fetch quests while trying not to die from starvation, dehydration, or being eaten by the local fauna. Building up a spaceship from the salvage that will be able to take you off the planet and return you to society. That is an extremely oversimplified story. If you do not want to have it spoiled, skip to this time on the video. Spoilers ahead. Story of Subnautica follows Riley Robinson, a sole survivor of a ship called Aurora, owned by the Altera Corporation, sent on a mission in space to build some space gates in galaxy. However, the ship has a secondary mission to explore a region where over 10 years ago, a ship of a competitor's company has gone missing, which is when the Aurora is shut down by an energy weapon installed onto the planet 4546b by precursors, an ancient alien species that has been trying to create an antidote for the Kara bacterium destroying planets deep into space. However, because the facility where the samples of the bacterium were kept was attacked by one of the Leviathans, the bacteria has escaped, and therefore the aliens decided to put the whole planet into quarantine. So any ships traveling too close will be shut down in order to prevent the disease to escape to another planet, which is why Aurora was shut down, and now you will not only have to survive, you will need to find a cure of which key component is produced by a sea emperor leviathan called Enzyme 42. but unfortunately, the only one left on the planet is too old to create the substance, or at least fully create it, and so you will need to help hatch her babies, as without the cure, if you would try to build a ship, the gun would just shoot you down, as during your stay there is an attempt to save you, however that ship is destroyed by the weapon as well. Interesting thing to add is the fact that when you pick up your first diamond, you get automated message where apparently all resources you will use are owned by the company. So if you survive, you will have to work that all off. Makes you wonder if staying on the planet after you are cured would just not be more logical choice. Also, I kept scanning myself before entering the alien facility to see if I'm infected, but I always had normal status. But once the shielded doors were opened and I scanned myself, even before interacting with the databanks inside, I got the infected reading, so I was not sure if it was airborne or if it was spread by small fish being eaten by a larger fish, and so on. Meaning, you will need to traverse the local biomes and gather those resources, which is how we get to the gameplay section of the comparison. Now, this sounds like an amazing story, much more developed than FarSky for sure. However, is this story good enough for you to put up with the next section, which is the gameplay? Let's take a look at FarSky first, because you will be working with less tools. We'll break it down into a couple of parts and do the same for Subnautica, as I feel it would be unfair to discuss this in less detail. Movement. Okay, so your primary means of moving around are you walking on the bottom of the ocean, which might be a big red flag for most of you, as if you ever tried to move one foot in front of the other in the water, most common reaction in water is that you would be going up and not forward. When you need to traverse hills or cliffs, getting back to the shallow water, you are able to jump, which is when you would feel like you are in the water, as each jump carries you surprisingly far. You have 5 jumps, so you can traverse quite the distance, however you will not reach the surface. That can be only done with the submarine, once you fix it. So you will rely heavily on a underwater scooter, a small little device which allows you to move at faster speeds forward, not however fast enough to escape the sharks. So be careful when jumping around. This gets you into the open water, which is where the predators are, and they are drawn to you, especially during night. Resource gathering. Primary way of you obtaining resources is by you using a drill. This drill can be eventually upgraded, however you will mostly be going for certain minerals such as iron, copper, etc. There is a way to gather resources without the drill, and that is to install mining drills, which do the job for you, slowly depleting the deposits. So you will be gathering from 100% iron to eventually 80, 60, 40%, mining out rock and sand later in higher quantity. Each biome is filled with different minerals, and the deeper you go, the rarer the resources can be, but exploration is usually well rewarded by you coming across sunk ships with treasure chests, which add up to your overall endgame score. Food and sustenance. So you will be able to get 2 types of food in FarSky. Indoor grown vegetables such as potato, green beans, carrots, and then you will rely on fishing. You can start by cutting small fish with a knife to getting a harpoon, helping you catch bigger fish, where I believe only for the educational purpose I was able to hunt down a whale, as I do not support whaling personally, but beware, as each time you kill a fish or harm a larger fish, blood will fill the water, and that attracts the sharks, barracudas, and the other predatory species, so you cannot just go super crazy slicing fish and stock up on tilapia or other frozen fillet in your local grocery store. On the upside, if you have enough ammo, you can even hunt the sharks or the other species. As I found out, by eating cooked shark steak, you restore quite a lot of your hunger. Benefit of the game is that the food does not decay. Base building. So base building in the game is extremely easy. You will be turning iron into flooring and expanding base, easily being able to add in windows, add in additional floors if you want to construct second base to reduce the traveling time towards other biomes for other resources. No reinforcements of walls or other things are necessary. Upgrading your gear. The key to upgrading gear is that you will be able to get 3 tiers of helmet, your suit, and the oxygen tank, and a couple more things. But this is important, as not having the proper suit will not allow you to descend into deeper biomes safely. The best thing is, you do not need to hunt for blueprints, and everything is accessible to you at the start of the game. You just need to gather all the resources. Engine. FarSky is made in Java, so like Minecraft, and you might have to install it onto your device if you have not done so yet. Damage. In FarSky, you are primarily hurt by the predators, meaning if you get bitten, this takes out portion of your HP pool. However, the enemy can trigger a bleeding debuff. So if you do not have a bandage to stop the bleeding, you are screwed, as more and more predators will join the feast. Bandages do not restore the HP, they only stop the bleeding. So when you want to go and recover, you will need to return to your base and eat for the health to be restored. These 5 segments will create the overall gaming experience for you in FarSky, and I need to mention these as we will be taking a look at Subnautica, where there are more options but also more issues to be found. So let's get to it. Movement. So in Subnautica, you will be doing a lot of swimming, like a lot. Thanks to the fact that the game has physics, you will actually feel like you are swimming, as the water will respond to your movements. Thanks to the much larger tech tree to explore, you will notice the difference too, especially once you board the vehicles available for you. Great thing is that the vehicles are compatible, so eventually when you get the large submarine, it allows you to carry the Seamoth or the prawn suit to far off locations, allowing you to mine for resources and return back to your base of operations, dramatically reducing the amount of times traveled across the map. Resource gathering. So when it comes to gathering, you will rely on a couple of means. You cannot really install a drill on a deposit, like in FarSky. You will be finding small rocks with pieces of minerals inside, and depending on what type of location or biome you are at, you can find specific deposits. You will just have to remember where exactly you come across what resource, as unfortunately, in comparison to FarSky, you are not allowed to stack up items in your inventory, and because you will need to keep on hand fresh food and water, this will limit your space, as the tools you will be using are going to occupy your inventory as well. Meaning, if you make a trip for lithium and diamonds, you will only be able to carry certain amount, so you will spend hours in game just going from point A to point B to point A, which means having a proper means of moving around the map will be important. Later in certain biomes, you will come across larger deposits of minerals, as at the start you will be turning, for example, metal salvage from Aurora into titanium, but if you will want to drill these deposits, you will need a prawn suit with the drill arm attachment. For both, you will need to travel to different locations to scan the parts to get the blueprints. You will be otherwise picking up the items manually, but depending on what tool you are holding, you can see a cool animation where, for example, you can smack the scanner on a small deposit and get a piece of gold. Food and subsistence. So Subnautica has much more complex way of trying to keep you alive. Thanks to the fact that you have more game mods, you will need to monitor different statistics, from hunger to thirst to health. You will need to swim towards fish to grab it by your hand, because we all know how easy it is to swim and catch a fish with your bare hand. The fish can then be cooked, restoring your hunger. You can also grow vegetables like melons, potatoes, and others to feed yourself. However, you cannot really cook those, or at least I did not find a way to do so, or a way to turn them into these food rations which you are able to come across inside of the Aurora or time capsules. So the issue is that you will need to feast on a buffet of fish to find out which ones are better for restoring your hunger, as no fish are equal. Some of them are even able to be turned into a bottle of water. I think there is an untapped potential, as even if you would try to kill one of the larger species like stalker, for example, you cannot really break it down into fillets and cook them. So this would be a great addition to the game, I believe. And this is where Subnautica is missing a potential motivation to try and challenge the players to hunt for the larger species. Base building. When it comes to base building, it works a little differently in Subnautica, as you will require a construction tool at first, and in order to just start with that, you will require to find the blueprint, and before that, you are not allowed to construct a base of operations. Once you do explore enough and get the tool, that will allow you to start building a base. But unfortunately, again, at the start you are only given a couple of blueprints, which will not really allow you to build any rooms where to store equipment. This means you cannot really consider base building as an aspect of your early game and focus on it more through the mid-game to end game. Through my experience with the game, as I did not play it before, I kept struggling with things like what to do with the depleted batteries. It was only at my second playthrough that I knew there is a battery recharger, and these things can be only built inside of your base. That is, if you find the blueprint first. So the size and variety of your base will be heavily affected by how much you have explored and how many YouTube videos of how to find blueprints and resources you have watched. One thing which I have a big issue with is that you are never truly told, or it's not really well explained, how big can you build in which depths. Meaning, once you build a couple of modules or tubes, the pressure will start to crush the structure. Meaning you will be more often finding your base having cracks in the walls that need to be fixed. This means you will have to undergo lots of trial and error just to figure out how big can you build or how much reinforcing you need, really limiting the potential of players being motivated to build a bunch of bases, but more likely build one or two and that is it, putting to waste all those blueprints which are never then fully utilized, or players building base of operations in each one of these specific biomes. Upgrading your gear. Well, depending on which gear we are talking, you will need to either first get a blueprint for it, or you get a blueprint for a modification station, and based on if you want modules for upgrading tools or equipment like fins, retractor beam, or deep diving modules for your vehicles, you will require separate upgrading stations, meaning you will spend a whole lot of time moving from point A to point B to point C, and if you do not know where to go, this will be a big problem. One thing which is really weird about the game, however, is how this upgrading will affect your exploration. So let's say you have the MK1 module for depth, so you can go only 300 meters deep. However, if you would exit the sea moth, you can swim into 500 meters without being hurt by the pressure. Sure, you will eventually need the reinforced swimsuit, but you will see a lot of footage in general where people are exiting their vehicles and swimming deeper than the submarine made out of titanium, which makes you wonder what is the whole point of having physics in the first place. Engine. Subnautica is made in the Unity engine, however it is hard to tell if the engine is properly utilized as the game suffers from really bad optimization, where the environment is not able to keep rendering in, and if you will ever look up the guides on YouTube on how to gather resources or scan components, you are warned to go in slowly as you can miss these, and if you will miss them, you will have to return later or stay in said biome much longer. Problem which I have, and this is meant in the best possible way towards the developers, is for the studio to return and address these issues as the game will start to age and as the players are introduced to much better graphics cards, processors, and just platforms in general. This will start to show more and more often. And because I have not played the Sub-Zero DLC, because at the end of my experience with Subnautica, I was really not happy, I could not say how much of an improvement has been made in the game with the 3 years of a gap between the game's launch and the DLC release. So you can let me know in the comment section. Damage. So there are actually ways you can take damage inside of the game. There is damage taken by biting, explosions, fire, poisoning, having a parasite, and much more. You will get even an animation along with your visor on your diving gear, which will show cracks in the glass or being burned or poisoned. So thanks to the much larger variety of biomes and enemies, you can expect more ways to be hurt. My favorite has to be when exiting the sea moth submarine and being ran over by it. Even funnier is when you hit a fish with the submarine, as it will have deadly effects for it. Therefore, my advice is to try avoid hitting any fish whatsoever. As you can see, while in FarSky the exploration is natural and you are handed basic equipment at the start of the game, teaching you not only the in-game mechanics, but also giving you the tools to keep you going, Subnautica throws you into the shallows and lets you figure things out by giving you only hints with exploration, thanks to the radio on board of your escape pod, which leads you to a certain location. These locations can become really crucial, as to some of them you will have to keep returning over and over again for either scanning of blueprints or just being rich with resources. And this is where I came across lots of issues, as the goal of the series is to objectively judge which game is better when comparing certain things, meaning when in FarSky, thanks to you just having access to a map and being able to see what is in the surrounding area, Subnautica gives you at best compass once you find the blueprints, or in the scanner room you can have a map of the local region. However, it lacks the natural exploration reward system. Meaning, if we take a look at the basic in-game loop of exploration, scavenging, food gathering, survival, exploration, there are too many things that need to be done in Subnautica, which can either overwhelm or make you miss certain things, as I played the game on multiple occasions, and in each replay I was stuck on either getting one blueprint too soon, or I had to return to a place a couple of times just to find the one I was missing, making the experience really inconsistent, as the map does not change too much, and therefore getting coordinates, codes to doors, and much more never changes, so once you know them, you can reuse them on your replays. Question is how much fun you will have swimming around gathering resources and how much you want to get off this beautiful planet. That, my dear viewers, brings us to how you can explore the planet or in what sort of game modes you can do so, as we are gonna be taking a look at the game modes available in the two titles. So FarSky offers you 3 modes. Adventure, which is you can die a couple of times and you will be still able to continue. Survivor, where you have only 1 life, so if you die, it's game over and you need to start all over again. And last one is Sandbox, which is all about surviving, gathering resources, and just having fun. Subnautica offers a whole lot more, as you have the survival mode, which is like an adventurer mode where you have to manage your stats while you go through the story, and you can die a bunch of times and yet still finish the game. Biggest issue I see with this mode is that it can help speedrunners, as they can gather resources and just cut on the travel time by simply drowning themselves and respawning back at the rescue pod with all resources still in their inventory. Freedom mode, where you only monitor your health and oxygen, so no hunger or thirst because managing food is annoying as it can decay. Hardcore, which is survival mode with 1 life, meaning if you die at any point you have to start all over, or from your last potential save possibly. I haven't tried this mode, you will have to let me know. Last but not least, the creative mode, which is where you do not manage any of your stats and you are just given freedom to explore and do as you like. So if you struggle with building bases or anything, this is where you can learn how to improve your designs. I have not explored this mode personally, as getting through Subnautica took far more time than I wanted, and I was really hoping I would be able to get footage for other projects in the meantime, so I cannot even tell you if, for example, the issues with base building, meaning how much reinforcing and other things you will need to monitor, at what depths are required, or if this is completely absent, not really helping players to improve their designs and overall planning. And during these game mods, you will be introduced to the audio. So both games are given the audio noise or a couple of songs to play during your stay with them. In FarSky, the selection is fairly limited, mostly kicking in when you access a new biome or region, and therefore most of the time you are given the ambient noises of the surrounding ocean. That is until you try to open up a chest, or try to grill something, or use one of the tool benches, which at that point specifically, the music will stop or be muted. Subnautica has, on the other hand, an extensive soundtrack with 49 songs. However, you would think with this much of a selection, you would be constantly headbanging to some epic tune, but even Subnautica, most of the tracks kick in when you get into some biome or some scripted event happens, which is really a big shame. Also, if you like the soundtrack, you can buy it on Steam separately or in a bundle with the game. Bugs and Crashes. Now, so far in the series, I never really touched on things like bugs or crashes, as in Medal of Honor vs Call of Duty, I did touch on the fact of how you can be shot through terrain before you even spot the enemy. However, these games, you will need to watch out for certain stuff, as I did come across a couple of things. FarSky has issues with collisions, meaning if you stand between your base's pillars and a shark is attacking, it will go through the pillars and bite you, or it will just churn upwards and swim through the base. If you dodge an incoming charge of a shark or other species, you will start to turn to follow its body. You will end up stuck inside of this endless vortex until you slice it with a knife, or it's too fast for your hand to keep moving the mouse, so you get bit eventually. You can kill certain things and the loot of the ingredients might also not drop. Subnautica, on the other hand, suffers from a large variety of things which during my stay with the game were making me constantly frustrated. As I mentioned before, the Unity engine is not the greatest choice, and as the game will never be polished, you will be running into a lot of issues. Now thankfully, I never had a hard crash of the game, however, and even if you would be playing the game or looking up guides on YouTube on how to acquire something, you will be told about going into the specific biome slowly, as the rendering is unable to keep up, meaning you can miss things. I have missed a couple of cyclops pieces in biome or arrived to my base and the pillars were absent. But the worst thing of them all is when you board your Seamoth and for some dumbass reason you are not centered, which makes the driving really annoying, causing you to jump out of the vehicle and board it again. However, there I came across another issue where at times you are thrown in front of the small submarine being ran over by it, hurting you really badly. So yes, Subnautica offers much more. There is no denying it. However, due to its unpolished status and the developers just focusing on below zero DLC instead, that simply makes you wonder if the asking price for the game is truly worth it. Which brings us to price. Now both games have been out for a while, which means they are often discounted depending on which platform you prefer. FarSky comes only on PC, but Subnautica does come on the console as well. Meaning, if you would do a quick search on Steam, for example, you can be informed that, well, depending on if the prices do not change between me writing the script and me acquiring the footage for Steam, like happened last time when I did the comparison series, FarSky comes in at $4.99, which during last big sale received discount of 50%, leading to a cost of $2.49. And Subnautica comes in at $29.99, but also during Steam sale the game received 50% discount, getting the price down to only $14.99. Disclaimer: if you are considering adding one of these games but you are not sure, wait for a sale. Heck, there should be one around the corner soon with Christmas and all that madness approaching. But as per usual, do your own research and make sure that when you decide to support a game developer, you will not regret your choice. Which leads me to the final stage of the comparison: choosing the better compatibility for you, the player. And unfortunately, this is the first time when I am in the series based on comparing the strong points and the weak points, not sure what is the winner, because FarSky has great potential, but there is simply not enough to keep the players coming back for the game. And on the other hand, Subnautica is the phenomenon of giving a player too much stuff to do, but when you constantly have to keep looking up locations, guides, tips, it gets annoying rather fast. Therefore, for the first time ever, I will go with a draw as a result, which might be shocking to you, but keeping in mind that in 2 hours, I was able to get the Adventurers mode done in FarSky, yet in Subnautica I had to go 30 hours in, during which I kept constantly running into things which kept bothering me, and I had to keep mentally remembering notes like, yeah, if you need lithium or diamonds, the island with the alien base is a place to go, and much more. And this became more of a chore than actual entertaining experience, as if you were ever employed in a company that gave you a list of tasks to be done, you had to roll your eyes when you saw the task. That was the feeling I have experienced, so that is why I'm going with the draw verdict. However, if you are blessed with that gift of curiosity or exploration, then Subnautica will keep you entertained for a very long time. But most of all, I'm interested to know which one of the games have you heard of before? Have you ever played any of them? What is your opinion on my choice? Which game would you like me to compare next? Not sure how many were already compared? Check out the playlist in the video's description, as I need the views, but most of all, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, as that is the best way you can support me. I have a list of games I want to get into when it comes to comparing, but if there are ideas you have, I am all ears, as if I can get a feedback from you, that can help me out greatly too, making sure you will eventually see the content you want to. Just bear with me, as I'm not really sure what will be happening in my personal life due to my job and other things, which might affect how much time I can dedicate to the channel. So please, in the meantime, stay safe out there, and I will see you in the comments or at the next one.